Let's talk about the real number line. The real number line compared to, I guess, a fake number line, but basically what we're dealing with is real numbers. And you've been dealing with real numbers for as long as you've been doing math. We just might not refer to them as real numbers. If you look here at this number line, it should look pretty familiar to you. But let's be specific and talk about real numbers. So if we look at all these numbers, you're going to see down here we have -5, -4, -3, -2, so on and so forth, all the way up to 5. Notice we have arrows at the end. This means that the line goes in each direction past -5 and past 5. Those numbers right there are called integers. And we've worked with integers in the past. Integers don't include decimals or fractions or anything like that. There are positive and negative whole numbers or positive and negative counting numbers, and they include 0. Real numbers consist of all of these integers. Real numbers also take care of the decimals and the fractions. -3.5, 2.5. Okay. Even right here, if we want to say that this was like 3/4. Okay? So all of these integers, again, that we show here on this number line, all of these decimals and fractions, those are all called rational numbers. Again, none of these numbers are new to you. We've all dealt with these numbers before. Well, real numbers are going to take care of all the rational numbers, all the integers, but they also are when we start doing square roots and doing numbers that the decimal goes on and on forever. For example, if I were to do the square root of 2, that would be approximately equal to 1.4142135, so on and so forth. Okay, that decimal is never going to end. So it would approximately be like right in here. So real numbers are going to take care of all these like irrational decimals. Okay, so basically in algebra, when we deal with real numbers, we're dealing with all numbers. Are there numbers outside of real numbers? Yes, there are. They're actually called complex numbers and imaginary numbers. So I wasn't too far off earlier when I said about the fake number line, but we call them imaginary numbers. So just to kind of practice with real numbers, one of the examples you might have in your homework would say, graph the numbers -1 3/4 and 2.7. So if you look at a number line like this, -1 3/4, here's 0. All of these numbers down here are negative. Negative always goes to the left. Negative is always to the left of 0. So when we talk about negative numbers, negative real numbers, they're always left of 0. And that's important. The positive numbers are the ones over here. And again, this should be review, but positive numbers are always to the right of 0. And it's important when we draw our number line that that's how we set it up. Okay. 0 again is special. Oops, I should do a different color here. 0 is neither positive nor negative. Okay, it's smack dab in the middle of our number line. So again, if we wanted to graph a -1 3/4, we go to -1 and then we go 3/4 the way over. So maybe right in here. Not a trick question. We're just practicing graphing numbers on the number line. 2.7, again, here's 0. It's positive, so we're going to go in the positive direction. 2 and 0.7 would be perhaps right in there. Okay, again, not trying to trick you with anything. We're just practicing and becoming more familiar with, I guess, different types of numbers. We're not just going to be working with integers this year. Another question you might come across when you're doing your work in class would say, write two inequalities that compare -1/2 and -3/2. Sometimes it's really helpful to use a number line. I picture number lines a lot in my head when I'm doing problems like this, just to help keep it straight, especially when dealing with negatives. So if we look, -1/2, again, here's 0. It's going to be on the left side of the number line, and it's not quite, it's halfway to 1. Okay, so that one, which hopefully is pretty easy to figure out, would be about right there. Negative 3/2, though, if we had 2/2, that would be 1. Okay, so if it helps, change this into a mixed number. Truly will not really deal with mixed numbers at all this year in algebra, but sometimes it's helpful to picture things on a number line when they're mixed numbers. 2 goes into 3 one time, and there's 1 left over. Again, though, it's a negative, so we change that to negative. So in this case, we would, and oops, I realize I just made my mistake. I apologize, guys. Let me move this over. Halfway between 0 and negative 1. I apologize for that. So negative 3/2 will be go over 1 and a half, again in the negative direction, and that's negative 1 and 1/2. Okay, now that I do this correctly, we should be able to see which one's bigger or smaller. When we're talking about inequalities, remember, we're talking about less than and greater than. The further you go to the left, the smaller the numbers get. Or you can think of it the other way. The further you go to the right, the bigger the numbers get. So we could say that negative 3/2, or 3 over 2, since it's to the left of negative 1/2, is smaller than a negative 1/2, is less than. Here's the thing, though, it does say to write 2. So again, we're practicing just dealing with these numbers. If negative 3/2 is smaller than negative 1/2, well, then negative 1/2 has to be bigger, has to be greater than negative 3/2. So don't get messed up by this whole write 2 inequalities. It's the same equality, it's just written in 2 different ways. Negative 3/2 is less than negative 1/2 because it's to the left of it in the number line. Or you can say negative 1/2 is greater than a negative 3/2 because it's to the right of it on the number line. One more example right now. It says write the following numbers in increasing order. Again, some of you might not need a number line to do this, but again, it can be helpful. So negative 1.5. Here's 0, here's negative 1, here's negative 1.5. 1/3. Again, if you were to change 1/3 into a decimal and go 1 divided by 3, you would get 0.3333, and it goes on forever. So we're just going to go about 1/3 of the way over. Imagine breaking from 0 to 1 into 3 parts. And we're going to say 1/3 is about right there. Then we have negative 3. Okay, so I've done negative 1/2, 1/3. Negative 3 is right here. 2.5. 1, 2, and about 0.5 is halfway. So we'll say go halfway between the 2 and the 3. 0. And negative 1. So now, once we put them on the number line, again, you don't need to use a number line, but at least picture one in your head. If we want to write it in increasing order, our smallest number is negative 3. Then the next one we run into is a negative 1.5, then negative 1, then 0, then 1/3. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you have to write 1/3 because that's what they gave us here. No decimals or anything. You write what they give you. And then our largest number is 2.5. Again, it becomes confusing sometimes when we start throwing in negative numbers and decimals and fractions, so a number line can help us keep that all straight.